everybody, welcome to our May Let's Paint Live. In celebration of National Mod Podge Month, we are incorporating some fun Mod Podge kind of mixed media elements into our paint night tonight. I'm super excited about it. If you guys are returning followers of our Let's Paint Lives, then welcome back. We're so grateful to have you guys here with us. If you're just finding us for the first time, welcome. My name is Emma Panuski. I'm a content creator here at Plaid, and each month, the first Thursday of every month, we go live on Facebook at 7:30 p.m. And we teach you how to paint a painting in just about an hour. It's super fun. Usually there's a bunch of different instructors, so you're learning constantly new things from all of our different creators here at Plaid. We have a really great kit that you can pick up. It's our FolkArt Let's Paint Live kit. You can find it on plaidonline.com. It has a variety of folk art acrylic paints and a really substantial 10-piece artist variety brush set. So once you pick that up, then you can have full reign of the whole Let's Paint Live catalog, where you can have a lot of really great free painting education, and you always walk away with a really cute and unique painting that's your very own. So Caitlin's in the studio with us tonight. If you have any questions throughout our live stream, please feel free to comment down below. Caitlin will be looking at all of your comments and questions. And I do want to mention again that it's Mod Podge Month, so happy Mod Podge Month, everybody. We're really excited about it here at Plaid. Obviously, we're big Mod Podge fans. So we're going to be talking about all things Mod Podge all month long, so make sure you're following us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all of those social medias at Plaid Crafts. We're going to be sharing some really inspiring content for you guys to hopefully inspire you to create some cool Mod Podge projects of your own. And also be checking into plaidonline.com, because all month long we're going to be having some really great deals so that you can craft on a dime. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. I hope you guys saw this on plaidonline.com. We have some free downloadable papers that we're going to be using in our painting tonight. So make sure you have those with you. We're going to be using an 8x10 stretched canvas. I have a pencil, my 10-piece artist variety brush set, my folk art paints from the Let's Paint Live kit, but specifically we're going to be using classic green, cinnamon, bright pink, cardinal red, aqua, baby pink, true blue, daffodil yellow, and white, which I don't think I brought with me. But one of the most important factors is that we're going to be using our Mod Podge mat. So any size will do, obviously. The reason that I chose Mod Podge matte is just because our folk art paints are matte, so I just wanted to keep the sheen consistent. Thank you, Caitlin. Caitlin Extraordinaire got me some wicker white, perfect. Okay, so now we're ready to go. So the first thing that we're gonna do is I'm gonna put some navy blue onto our palette. And I'm going to take my number 3 round brush. I'm going to dip it into my clean water basin. And with that wet brush, I'm just going to mix some of that water from my brush into my navy blue. This is going to help us create some consistent lines when we're sketching out the initial shapes of, or rather in our painting tonight. So just adding a little bit of water will help the fluidity of your brush as it moves across your canvas. So we're going to create our horizon line that's about 2.5 to 3 inches across our canvas. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create the shape of our vase. And I also want to note, if you feel more comfortable doing this first with a pencil, totally feel free to do this. I'm just going to go right at it for time's sake tonight. So what we're going to do is I'm going to create kind of like a skinny C there. And I'm just going to mirror that a little bit higher on the other side, creating the formation of our vase. I'm going to make a line for our fallen leaf. We have another leaf going here that's kind of going off the table, off our picture. And now we can start to create some of these flower shapes. So starting at the top right corner, I'm going to make my circle. You don't want to make your circle too small because we want to make sure that we have enough room to fill in the center of our flower there. I'm going to do some petal shapes. They're all going to be pretty uniform, so about this shape, and we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4. In my original painting, some of these petals down here were being intersected by our foremost flower. So let's switch gears and make the flower in the front really quick. So again, making that circle. We're going to have about 5 or 6 petals, okay? Three, 4, 5. Now we can kind of fill in here. I just didn't want to intersect those lines there, so right there. And then we have a flower a little bit more on our left. Create some petals for it. Up there. And one more petal. Perfect. All right, so we have the basis going on right now. I'm going to add another leaf that's kind of popping out of our vase over here. So 1 stroke, 2 stroke, and then a leaf that's kind of peeking out at the top here. All right, it's looking pretty good. So the last line that we're going to make with our navy outline is this line that kind of separates our background in the middle here. It's just a kind of quirky curvy line. So whatever your heart desires with that one. All right. So that's the basic shapes of our painting tonight. So once we have that ready to go, I'm gonna rinse off my brush. And I have my Plaid heat tool over here, so I'm gonna use that to dry our navy blue in place before we move on to the next step. We wanna make sure that this is super dry before moving on. Okay, once your navy outline is nice and dry, I'm going to add some bright pink to the palette here. And the water in my water basin is still pretty clean right now, so I'm going to use the water from it to water down our bright pink. We're going to create like a wash with our paint. So I'm dipping my 1-inch flat brush into my basin, and I'm introducing the water to my paint, and I'm just brushing it down, adding more water as I go to thin down our paint to create this sort of wash. All right, we want our paint to kind of be like the consistency of milk. Okay, that's looking pretty good. Make sure that there's no chunks of paint in your wash. We want it to be nice and smooth, so just keep brushing through it until you think it's smooth. And over our whole canvas, we're going to make this hot pink wash. And so if you're unfamiliar with this, we're just kind of creating an underpainting. Having this bright pink color in the background is going to affect the overall hue of our finished painting. It's not going to make it pink, obviously. You can see in our final there, but it adds some nice depth to the finished piece. All right, once you have your bright pink wash on your whole canvas, I'm going to go ahead and rinse my brush again. And we're going to dry this one more time with our heat tool. All right, that took a lot less time to dry because we added so much water to our paint. It allowed the wash to evaporate more quickly than if we hadn't watered down our paint. If you didn't know, the FolkArt paints that we're using tonight, they're non-toxic and water-based. So normally, the dry time that you expect out of the paint is really just the water evaporating from the open paint. So when we add more water to it, it quickens that time up a little bit. Okay. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add to my palette some daffodil yellow, some classic green, and some wicker white. Okay, and I'm going to take a small flat brush. This is a number 6 flat here. And I'm going to dip it into my yellow and create those little circles in the center of our flowers. And without rinsing my brush, you saw I didn't have much yellow on it after I created that first circle. I'm going to dip it into my white, and on our canvas, we're going to be mixing those two colors together. Just a really rough mix. Creates a lot of depth to our painting. As if we were to mix it on our palette, and we were to mix it until it was so well combined and you couldn't see the difference between the two colors anymore, we would just be left with one color, but we kind of have that multi-textural thing going on, having both of the colors on there and not having them totally mixed and combined. I'm going to rinse that brush, and then I'm going to go for my number 8 flat, so just a little bit of a bigger flat brush here. And we're going to do a really similar thing with our leaves, so I'm going to dip my brush into the classic green. And I don't want to cover my navy outlines. I like having them show in the final piece. That's just a preference thing. So it's up to you really how much you want to cover of those navy lines. But we're going to do the same thing we did with our centers. Once there's not very much green left on my brush, I'm going to dip it into my white, and you can see that just adds a different look to our leaf compared to if we had mixed our colors on our palette. So really just kind of interchangeably, I'm going between my green and my white, whatever I'm feeling really in the moment. If I want my leaves to be filled with a little bit more white, I'll go in with more white. Same thing if I want it to have a little bit more green, I'll go in with my green with my brush. And you really get to have fun and just kind of play with how much of with what color you want to introduce into your final piece. Okay, so you can see here there's some greenery that's going on in between our flowers, just so we don't see much of our yellow background in the end, so that our bouquet looks really full. So in between some of our flowers, I'm going to add some of our white and our green, just to make the flowers look a little bit more full, less wimpy. And I'm just carefully using my flat brush to get in between all of the petals. Again, being mindful to leave some of that navy space. But we're really just kind of giving the illusion that there's more leaves than you can actually see. All right, I like how that's looking. So I'm going to rinse my brush again. And next up, I'm going to add to my palette some true blue and some aqua. I don't know if you guys are noticing a theme yet here, but we're going to keep up with the same technique that we've been working with. So I'm dipping still working with my number 8 flat into my true blue here. And I'm going to fill in the shape of our canvas, or I'm sorry, our vase. So I'm making some lines, and then you know what? I'm going to dip into my aqua and change it up. And kind of going up and down, back and forth, working that in to any of the true blue areas where I want there to be a little bit more aqua. Just going back and forth, working those two colors together, not totally blending them. I still like to see the difference of the two colors, but brushing back and forth to incorporate those into our piece. Okay, and like once you fill in a certain section of your painting, if you don't like the ratio of aqua to blue, if you want to add a little bit more aqua, then while your paint is still wet, totally feel free to just add some more of the color that you think may be missing. And just go over those areas, blend it in a little bit. Okay? All right, rinsing my brush. I'm going to do the same thing with the bigger section of our background or our wall here. So those two colors that we're going to be incorporating together again are the same ones that we did for the center of our flowers. So we're going to be working with our daffodil yellow and our wicker white. And I'm still using this pretty small flat brush just so I can get into all of the nooks and crannies using, you know, the sharp end of my brush. If I was using a larger flat brush, I just feel like personally I would have less control. If you want to switch to a round brush or whatever you prefer to get into some of those tighter spaces in your painting, then absolutely feel free to do that. And another thing that you guys will be able to see, this is another reason why it's great to incorporate an underpainting like how we did with our hot pink wash here. If you've painted with acrylic paints before, you know that sometimes yellow has a reputation of being a little bit too transparent. And if I were just painting yellow onto the plain, unpainted background in our canvas here, you might be able to see some streaks, some unwanted brush lines that wouldn't be so pretty. But because we have this pink already in the background, you can see it's really doing its job of warming our yellow up, and there's already paint on the base there, so we're not seeing any of those brush stroke lines that you might see otherwise. Adding some more white down here, maybe up there a little bit. I'm just moving my canvas around just because it's easier for mobility reasons, honestly. Getting into those little tiny spaces in between our petals. I think I'm really routinely pretty much going back and switching in between my two colors. I just add a little bit of paint to my brush and I go in with the white, and then next time I'll go in with the yellow, and so on and so forth. So once the majority or all of your background is covered up, again, now's the time to really make it your own. If you want more of one color, like a little bit more white, add some more white. If you want more yellow, add some more yellow, until you're happy with the way your background looks. And I'm happy with mine, so I'm going to go ahead and rinse my brush. I'm going to start working on the middle section of our background now. So if you introduced a lot of water to all of your bright pink, then go ahead and add a little bit of fresh bright pink to your palette. But I still have a lot of untouched by water in my bright pink, so I'm good to go there. We're going to be doing the same technique in this area now, and the two colors we're going to be using are white and bright pink. Right, same deal. I think I want to add a little bit more white. So I'm just working that in. Okay, that's looking good. So I'm going to rinse my brush. And then I'm going to add some cinnamon to our palette, which is this really pretty, warm, soft brown color. And I'm going to pick up my number 8 flat brush again. And you might be way ahead of me. We're going to work on the bottom section of our background here with our cinnamon and white. And you can kind of see too, if I'm brushing horizontally, sometimes I'll switch it up and brush vertically or diagonally, and that will change the look of your blended background. What's the word I'm looking for? Like the fluidity of the movements will change depending on which way or which direction you move your brush. Okay, so I'm kind of going back around the edges of my leaves here. Introduce some more colors that you're missing out on. Until you're happy with how that looks. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. So I'm going to rinse my brush. And now I'm going to add some cardinal red and some baby pink to my palette. And the last thing we're going to do with our FolkArt pink tonight is we're going to paint in our petals of our flowers. So I'm going to switch it up back to my smaller flat brush. So I'm working with my number 6 flat. And we're going to continue with the same technique of blending those colors on our palette, or I'm sorry, on our canvas. But this time we're going to be using 3 colors. So we're going to be using our cardinal red, our baby pink, and our wicker white. So I'm going to start with my cardinal red. And again, you don't want to have way too much paint on your brush. And I'm just following in the shapes of our petals. And because this is the smallest shape that we've worked with so far, if you want to, kind of start out slowly and just fill it in with just one color all the way up, and then kind of offload some of that red, you can see I'm doing, and then dip your brush into another color, going in for my baby pink, kind of working just a little bit of that into it. For my next petal, I'm going to go in with my baby pink. You can see I still have some of that cardinal red on my brush, which is working in our favor, adding a different dimension to our petals. The next one, I'm going to go in with wicker white a little more red in there. Okay. And we're going to end up doing this with all of our petals. So by the end, you know, depending on which colors you really want to feature in each petal, they're all going to be looking very different and unique in the end. Just like regular flowers or real flowers. But every time I load my brush, I'm just choosing a different color. And just for my own sake, honestly, to stay within the lines of the petals and so I don't go overboard and totally wipe out our navy outline, you can see I'm painting around the edge of our shape first, and then I'm going into the center a little bit more freely so I can make sure that I don't ruin the shapes that we created in the beginning. But if you do, it's not the end of the world. Once your paint dries, you can just go in with more of that navy line if you like. All right, and those are what our petals are looking like. I think it's looking pretty good so far. All right, so we're in a pretty good space. The last thing that we're going to do to our painting tonight is incorporate some mixed media. So this is where your printed papers are going to come in. If you're just now joining us, these are some free downloadables. If you go to plaidonline.com, under the Inspire and Create tab, you'll scroll down to Let's Paint Live, go to our paper and petals here, and you can download all of these papers for free to use in your painting. So one last time, I'm going to use my heat tool to dry this in place. All right, now for the fun part, tearing and ripping. So I'm going to place my canvas right here for now. I'm going to take my papers, So it's up to you how you want to incorporate the paper into your piece, but the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off our white space here of our template, just because I want this straight line with only the pattern to begin. So I'm going to simply just tear our paper here, and you'll notice if you have one piece of the paper grounded and the other piece that you're pulling up to rip it, the piece that's grounded is going to be the piece of the tear that has the white rip on it. Does that make sense? See how this is clean and there's our white rip. So it's totally up to you. It's just really an aesthetic preference of what you prefer in your mixed media. If you want to have that tear included or you want to have a cleaner edge. I like the tear. I feel like it adds, you know, more to the, what's the word I'm looking for? Authenticity of the mixed media piece. But what I'm trying to do is I'm going to create kind of like a triangle, with the point of the triangle being down and the opposite side of our point being our straight edge. So pulling it down, I get a piece like that, right? So that one piece is going to be in our pink background, looking good. So now it looks like I have to do a similar piece over here, another triangle, but a little bit smaller. So back to straight edge. The reason that I wanted that straight edge is so I could line it up with our horizon line. I just like the look of that, but that's really up to you. I'm going to have my paper kind of going off the edge of our canvas. I like the way that looks. All right, so that's it for our first floral design. Next, we're going to work on adding some papers into our petals. So we don't really need any straight edges for this one, so I'm just going to tear away some of that white part. And I'm going to create little triangles. Okay, and every so often, if you just want to take your torn piece and kind of place it in your painting to see how it looks, that's what I do, just to make sure that I have what I want. But we're just going to keep tearing those smaller triangular pieces to place in our flower petals. And don't get stressed out about your paper having to fill the whole space of the one shape. You can kind of keep tearing at it, tear a new piece if you get frustrated with the one that you're working on, but it certainly does not have to take up the whole space of your petal. Just a portion of it will look just as good. But we're just making these rough triangles. So we have about, you know, whatever you guys prefer, 2 or 3 for each flower. You can have as many or as little as you like. I like the look of that. So I'm going to be done with this sheet of paper for now. Next, we're going to take our kind of like newspaper style paper here, and again, I'm going to go ahead and rip that so I don't have to worry about getting any of that white border in. Same thing on this end. And you can see in our final piece, very similar to how we did with this paper, we're going to make some larger triangles. Okay, if your white rip is a little too wide for you, you can really easily just kind of trim it down. I like that there. Then I'm gonna have a thinner piece trailing on the side here, even thinner. It's nice, okay. All right, and then the final paper that we're gonna incorporate into our painting is this dark green, which you guessed it, is gonna be a part of our leaves now. So kind of similar to the petals, we're creating really thin, kind of triangles, but ultimately it really is up to you how you want to incorporate the paper into your painting. I like to have quite a bit of the green paper in the center here to kind of mask off some of our whisper of a leaf situation going on, or suggestion of leaves, I guess. So that if someone looks too close, are those leaves? Of course they're leaves. You can't see? Couple more. And the more little pieces you add together, I think it looks more like a mosaic, which I think is really pretty. It's up to you. All right. It's looking pretty good to me. So once you have the papers that you want to Mod Podge onto your canvas, slowly move it down so my papers don't fly away. I'm going to work on the big pieces first. So to my palette, I'm going to add some of my Mod Podge matte. And because I already have my 10-piece Artist Variety brush set here, I'm going to use that for the Mod Podge. It's a great tool to use with your Mod Podge, but if you didn't know, we have specially formulated tools and brushes for Mod Podge specifically. And like I said in the beginning of this, it is Mod Podge month, you guys, so all month long on plaidonline.com, we have some really, really great deals for Mod Podge, so check that out and get some new tools and brushes for all your decoupage crafting. So I applied a thin layer of Mod Podge to where I wanted to place my paper down onto my canvas. I'm going to apply a little bit more Mod Podge to this edge of my canvas here so that I can wrap my paper around. And then I'm just using my finger to smooth it out. Same deal over here. Just kind of guessing where my paper is going to be, because I obviously don't remember the exact size and measurements of my paper, but the great thing about the Mod Podge is that even though it goes on a little bit milky white, it dries totally clear, like you can see in the finished piece there. So if you add too much Mod Podge and you're like, oh crap, I didn't mean to add that much Mod Podge, I don't want there to be any paper there, it's totally fine, it'll dry clear. No need to worry. So I'm just continuing with that all over my painting, adding a thin layer of Mod Podge to where I want my papers to be. Laying that down, using my fingers just to smooth it out. If you get some Mod Podge on your fingers, it's not the end of the world. This is also water-based and non-toxic. I probably had gallons of Mod Podge on my fingers in my lifetime, and it's never bothered me. You just wash it off with soap and water once you're done. And the good thing about working with Mod Podge too is, you know, before you press down like all of the edges of your paper to seal it or to stick it to your canvas, you have a little bit of wiggle room. Like I haven't pressed all the corners down, so if I want to kind of move that up a little bit, it's definitely very workable before it's dry. So that's a good thing to remember. See? Don't like that. Pick it up, replace it down. Not a problem. Just try to avoid using your fingers to secure the paper down and, you know, make your paper flush to your canvas until you get it where you want it. That's the only thing. I take some of these green pieces off. I feel like I have a good idea of where I want them to be, so I'm going to add some Mod Podge into the middle, mysterious leafy section, and then fill her up. You can even use your brush with your Mod Podge to secure your papers down if you don't like the feeling of touching it. If you don't like your hands being sticky for a minute or two, then that's another option, to use your brush to secure it down. Last one. All right, so there's one more thing we have to do. A great idea would be to save these papers, the pieces that we didn't use. If you are a scrapbooker or you like to do junk journaling, these are really great papers to just keep in your arsenal so that you can use them for other crafting. You don't have to throw them away. One more thing we have to do, I'm going to take my round brush that we made our navy outlines with in the beginning. Pick your favorite color from the painting tonight. I'm going to go back in with a navy blue actually. And make sure to add your signature so that people know how proud you are of your beautiful work of art. And with that, we painted paper and petals. So thank you guys so much for tuning in with us. Next month, we have a really exciting painting for you all. It may or may not involve a four-legged friend, which I know is probably very exciting to a lot of you. It's exciting for me. I can't wait to paint it. But Kirsten Jones will be teaching that one in June for us all. Happy National Mod Podge Month. Again, make sure you're following us on all of our social channels so that you can stay in tune with some great tips and tricks and loads of inspiration all month long. So thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Bye guys.